Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. My name is Muhammad Shahrir bin Shaizan from class 22C. I am going to be presenting for chapter 5 in for 5.1 introduction, and I will be explaining about the international cultural environment. This chapter covers wider factors present in the increasingly complex business environment faced by the firm in the 21st century, which in a way is becoming crucial by companies that operate abroad to adapt the different environment. These companies are required to restructure the management style and practices of their home country to the new environment. The national cultural environment consists of language, legal system, value, education, religion, and political system. The collective programming of the mind which distinguish the member of one group or category of people from others. This definition highlights the significance of values and the fundamental taken from a large group of people in a country and will influence their behavior, such as language. Consequently, by speaking the same national language, national culture and globalization is important part of the business environment as a result of the globalization, with more countries looking to operate outside of their home base and an exposure of a different culture, which consists of adapting a new business strategy such as marketing, human resource management, the product and management styles. The convergence perspective, globalization tend to lead a more standardization product as a consumer are aware of global brand and are more trustworthy. The divergence perspective, transferring brands across countries tend to cause difficulty management practices because of the national culture differences.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Haikal Afiq bin Jamaluddin. I will explain on subtopic 5.2.3, which is identifying the differences in national culture, and 5.2.4, which is the impact of national culture on business practices. The cultural difference between two countries is an important factor in international business environment. Normally, when discussing about cultural difference, we will take a consideration of historical, religious, and linguistic as dimension of national culture. However, we need some more precise criteria from a business perspective. According to Hofstede, there are four dimensions in evaluating differences in national culture, which are power distance, individualism, uncertainty avoidance, and masculinity. The first dimension is power distance. Power distance represents the social distance between people of different rank. For example, Malaysia have a high power distance level, where we can see a clear gap between superior and subordinate. Next dimension is individualism. This dimension is reflect how high an individual relies on a group or prefers to take individual initiative to solve problems. When you have a high individualism level, you are most probably prefer to solve problems alone instead of being in a group. Uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance reflects people's attitude towards ambiguity in a society or country. For instance, Greece has a high level of uncertainty avoidance where people of Greece does not happy to any unclear conditions and prefer more direction when performing tasks. The final dimension by Hofstede is masculinity. Masculinity describes the level of assertiveness, competitiveness, and the need to achieve success. A low masculinity depicts a higher degree of cooperation and more caring approaches to deal with people in organization. The national culture will influence the management style of an organization. We take American as example. American management style is well known as very individualistic in nature. American also have a low uncertainty avoidance where individuals will be expected to make decisions and to react to change effectively. Communication in American management style is informal in nature with the use of first name between senior and subordinate. In other side, Chinese management style is significantly different compared to Americans. In Chinese management, there will be a great respect for senior managers. Not only that, the manager also is a hard worker and have a lot of time in building relationship with subordinates. The communication in Chinese management style will usually be very formal, where the politeness and harmony is applied in the organization. So, that is how national culture will affect the management style of an organization. Not only management style, national culture also can affect other fields such as the HR management practices and marketing activity. For more detailed information and explanation, you guys can refer from the textbook under the subtopic of 5.2.4, The Impact of National Culture on Business Practices.
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Fakri bin Rukman. I'm going to present 5.3, which is the demographic environment, and three subtopics under it, which is key drivers of population change, birth rate factors, and death rate factors. Hello and good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muhammad Fakri bin Rukman, and I'm going to present about the demographic environment. So, what is demographic environment is all about? Demography concerns the study of population and population change and can be seen as another important factor that will affect the business environment. The impact of demographic changes can be more confidently predicted compared to other environmental indicators. For example, if we know the number of 5-year-olds in the country in 2010, we will have a pretty clear idea of the number of 15-year-olds there will be in 2020 and 25-year-olds in 2030. In this subtopic, we will examine the key drivers of population change and explain the main trends that are affecting population change worldwide. Key drivers of population change. There are two main indicators of natural population change, which are birth rate and death rate. Birth rate can be defined as the number of live births per thousand of the population, while death rate can be defined as the number of deaths per thousand of population. When these two figures are put together, we will get the natural increase or decrease of population. There is another factor that has to be taken into account when looking at population change. This is the net migration, which reflects the difference between immigration and emigration. If we add this figure to the natural change in population, we will see the overall increase or decrease in the population. An example, let's take a look at table 5.2, the estimated population change in selected European countries 2010 until 2015. On table 5.2, we can see that there are some significant difference in population patterns in Europe. Ireland has a birth rate which is far in excess of its death rate and also has a lot of inward migration, which means its population is increasing relatively quickly. This could be contrasted with the figures from Germany, where the death rate exceeds the birth rate. Birth rates tend to be more volatile than the death rates and thus may have more short-run impact on population changes. It may be affected by many factors such as attitudes towards family size. Another factor is the fact that more women wish to follow their own careers before having children and so delay the age of which they have children. The cost of having children might also be taken into account as well as the degree of flexibility in the labor market. Other determining factors could be the values of the country or the impact of religion on attitudes toward children. These factors may come together to account for the remarkably high birth rates in Ireland, for example. For example, let's take a look at table 5.3, the forecast total fertility rates. From table 5.3, we can see that Sri Lanka has a figure which less exceeds the desired replacement rate, while USA is almost exactly at the desired rate. France and UK have relatively good rates which are reflected in their higher birth rates. The lowest figures seem to come from either Eastern European countries or Mediterranean countries. The notable exemption is Germany. Comparison with data from previous years suggests that its fertility rate is almost the same as 10 years ago. Certainly, this decline in the number of children in these areas may be having a significant impact not only on the future population size of these countries, but also on the future age structure. Death rate factors. The death rate tends to be more stable than the birth rate, and it usually reflects the changing age structure of the population. A higher concentration of the older people will tend to lead to a gradual increase in the death rate. In many parts of the developing world, people generally have very basic diets, which might make them more vulnerable to illnesses. Also the impact of armed conflict, which may have an impact on the death rate if there is a prolonged civil war. With globalization and improvement in transport, diseases can travel much more quickly. In 2003, the SARS outbreak spread very quickly from Guangdong province in China to Hong Kong. And that's all from me. Thank you for paying attention, and my friend's going to continue with the other subtopics. Thank you.
Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Muzamil bin Azhar. I'm going to present about migration factors. Second one is pattern of population change. The third one is the input of population growth.
So my name is Muhammad Muzamil bin Azhar and I'm going to explain about migration factors and patterns of population change. Migration factors. Migration of people across borders has long been a feature of history and in the modern globalized economy. Historically, there have been many great shifts of population. Migrating in search of new opportunities for work are seen as economic migrants, whereas those migrating to escape oppression and persecution in their home country could be seen as political immigrants. Many of the people who migrate are younger and more ambitious. They can enrich the economy in terms of providing new skills and filling gaps in the labor market. The horrific potato famine was a significant spur to migration primarily to the New World and continual wave of outward migration occurred. This is obviously a loss for the country as the younger people are the most flexible. Irish migrants were seen as an asset to the UK where many work in construction industry. What is the interesting now is that the economic resurgence of Ireland in the 1990s has led to greater opportunities for young Irish people within Ireland and this has considerably reduced the flow of young Irish people abroad. Unfortunately, the Irish company has been hit relatively hard by the recession in 2008 and 9, with companies such as Dell Computers shifting European production to low-wage rate countries such as Poland. It is quite possible that the migration trend will reverse if the Irish economy fails to recover quickly. The case of Germany where the inward immigration is partially offsetting the decline in natural population growth. Germany has traditionally been a magnet to economic migrants because of its successful economic growth record which has encouraged inflow of migrants predominantly from Turkey and Eastern Europe. However, the result has often been political and social tension manifested by racial attacks and have encouraged the growth of far-right political parties, a feature found across Europe. Migrants also face other problems with some of them finding themselves in areas characterized by low quality and poorly maintained housing. In 2005, riots broke out in a suburb in northeastern Paris which had a high concentration of immigrants and high unemployment. Unrest rapidly spread to other parts of Paris and other cities throughout France and has recurred occasionally. One of the biggest challenges faced by the EU in the 21st century is that of illegal migration. An example of this influx of Albanians coming illegally into Italy with some moving on to the other countries and some staying in the hidden economy of Italy where they don't have to declare their earning. Another migration issue that can be seen throughout Europe and many developing countries is the shift from rural location to the urban location, leaving many villages in the more remote regions populated mainly by older people. However, this is turn cause problem in the city which uncontrolled urban sprawl and increased congestion. The better off tend to move to the affluent suburb, leaving the very old, the unskilled and certain ethnic minority groups concentrate in inner city areas. This lead to a range of social problems allied to high crime rates which pose additional problem for governments. Patterns of population change. The impact of population growth. The impact of population growth. It took 123 years for the world's population to increase from 1 billion to 2 billion, but only another 33 years to increase from 2 billion to 3 billion, with last landmark of 6 billion being passed in October 1999, a mere 12 years after reaching 5 billion. This high rate of growth, if unchecked, will continue to put extreme pressures on the world's resources unless they could be developed at a commensurate rate. In some countries, high population growth could be seen as a real inhibitor to economic growth and development. Table 5.4 shows that the world population growth from 1950 to 2000 and forecast for 2010 until 2050. Table 5.4 shows that the world population is forecast to grow at a slower rate. This is because of the effect noticed earlier where population growth is practically static.
This does suggest in the future something of a redistribution of world population, and this may have implications for business, long-term investment plans, and development strategies.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Atirah binti Azhar. I will present about the distribution of population, wider implication of population change, and the social dynamics. The distribution of population is about actual population changes and structure of the population in terms of the relevant age structures. The distribution of population can be looked at both within a country and between countries. The age structure of a country region can best be illustrated by a population pyramid. The effect of longer-term changes in birth and death rate is the aging of population. Dependency ratio, affected by the changes of aging population, reflects 15 to 64 years old to the rest of the population. The taxes will be raised which will support the schools, hospitals and other support services that are needed for the group outside that age range. Wider implications of population change. Population change is relatively slow and is the most predictable aspect about the business environment. Three levels of implications. First is individual level, second corporate levels, and third governmental levels. Individual levels. The changes will be reflected in the sort of life people can expect to live in the 21st century. First indicator is the life expectancy as it reflects the changes, lifestyle and medical improvements. Second indicator is the decline of the infant mortality where the children have a much stronger chance of survival in their first year. Corporate levels. Businesses in markets with aging populations may have to refocus their selling strategies. The older age group have more spending than previously, which led to grey power concept. Companies may find substantial markets for products and considering overseas investment decision is the geographical mobility of labor. Governmental levels. Most challenging dimension of demographic change. When there is high population, there are enormous pressure on governments to provide adequate resources for the growing population. While the prime requirement is for food and water, there will also be requirement for educational and medical facilities. With significant increase in the number of older people, it will be significant in increase the demand for medical services. Social dynamics. Examine some of the social trends that have occurred over the last years and assess some of the implications of this for the way we live and how they might be significant for the business. Three perspectives of social dynamic. First dynamic of social change is the changes in the changing family. Second social dynamic is the change in the lifestyles. Third social dynamic is the change in work.
Hi, my name is Munadila binti Ismail. I will present about the changing family, changing lifestyle and health. The changing family. Statistics from various UK sources have been widely used in this section. In this section, we are describing a trend that is evident in many more countries than the UK. Using information published by the UK Office of National Statistics, we can learn about many social changes in the past 40 years. More people are living alone than at any previous time. There are always a number of older people who live alone, but the figure for this group has remained stable, with the big increase in single household occurring in the 25 until 44 age group. The traditional family pattern where there exists a married or cohabiting couple with dependent children. Companies might have to start thinking about non-traditional targets when they target their market. Another area of change in the family is that of changing family relationship. One key issue here is that of marital status. A factor influencing this is the changing role of women in society and the increased career expectation of women. There are also some changes in traditional family roles, where the roles may be shared more between the household members. There are increasing cases where the female partner of one may earn a higher income than her husband or partner, and so we see the development of the household. Another factor that has contributed to the increases in single households, especially in the 25 to 44 age group, is the increase in divorce in the UK. Borgen 1998 suggests that there are three clusters of European society: the Nordic countries comprising Denmark, Sweden, Norway and Finland, the Southern European countries of Greece, Italy, Spain and Portugal, most of the continental countries in between which show characteristics of the first two clusters but not as strongly. This group would include France, Germany and the Netherlands. Changing lifestyle. The earlier population census focused on the demographic factors. More recent ones have begun to explore much more about lifestyle in order to measure how lifestyle behavior changed over time. There was still considerable market growth potential in new products, particularly in new technology and home entertainment. Health. Another aspect of lifestyle is the issue of health and how healthy our lifestyle has become. One way of looking at this is to look at healthcare system. The amount spent on healthcare system varies considerably, with high rates of spending in the USA and Germany contrasting with much lower rates of spending in countries such as Ireland, the UK and Turkey. There are also some contradictory trends occurring which reflect differing attitudes towards having a healthy lifestyle, and some of the issues are covered in Minutes K5.5 in textbook, which contrasts the increasing evidence of obesity in Europe with the massive explosion of health and fitness clubs.
Hi and a very good day everyone. I am Nurifa Adila. I will continue to present the other social dynamic trend, which is smoking and alcohol consumption, crime and terrorism in our society that reflect our healthy lifestyle.
As well as looking for smoking and alcohol consumption and the trend of crime and terrorism in social dynamic, it is occurred over assessing some implication on the way we live and how they might be important for the business environment.
Smoking and alcohol consumption linked with health and consumer spending on drinking and smoking trend. This area reflects people lifestyle decision and also multi-million industry. There is a health dimension involved because of the specific disease linked with these two products.
Alcohol consumption is increased for men and more for younger women in UK. This is because many Central and Southern European countries are wine producers and decline of beer drinking habits switched to wine in Northern Europe. The prevalence of cigarette smoking fell in UK from 1970s and 2000. The highest rate of smoking were found in age of 20 until 24 age group. Crime is the other issue of social dynamic that changes our life in international business environment, and it is continue to affect our family life and gender roles. Cybercrime becoming a major concern to government and business corporation because firm computer security has been known to public and they are suffered in financial loss. Terrorism. Terrorism is a very local act took place mostly in regions with political, social and religious or ethnic problems in a country. Lastly, the implication of terrorism is about then much security-intensive measure introduced at most international airports in much more time-consuming, so many companies may less inclined to do air travel business.
Hi, my name is Naini Adita binti Omar. I will present about education, work trend and conclusion.
Education. This is an important part of the international business environment because of the close relationship between education level and economic prosperity. A well-educated workforce leads to growing level of economic prosperity, which in turn lead to greater availability and demand for education in that country. A weak economy means that a nation cannot afford to invest in education and the nation is unable to develop its economy. Growing economies offer new markets and can set up subsidiaries in these growing markets, making use of the local workforce rather than expatriates. Work trends. One of the trends we have already identified is the increased possibility of part-time working in countries with more flexible working practice where there are opportunities for part-time working. McCarthy 1990 argued that the decline in union membership is the result of an interaction of five factors: the macroeconomic environment, the composition of jobs and the workforce including the relative decline in manufacturing industry, the policy of the state, the attitudes and conduct of employers, the stand taken by employers. Hillman 1996 has examined the wider trend in the working environment and how we will work in the 21st century, and he suggests that there will be a transformation in social life and the way we work. He suggests that the key trend in 21st century will be increasingly footloose economic activities, fierce global competition fueled by advance in information and communication technologies, shift in occupational pattern in favor of managerial, professional, and technical jobs in the service sector, and a shift to knowledge workers. Fractured career patterns and work boundaries, with training increasingly the responsibility of individuals themselves. Increasing dangers of exclusion for socially and economically disadvantaged groups. Conclusion. This chapter has covered a number of cultural, demographic, and social aspects of the business environment which may have significance for companies. We have also seen that companies and government have to pay increasing attention to change in the demographic structure with the business environment. Finally, we have examined a number of social change in terms of family change, changing lifestyle, and the changing nature of work, all of which may be very significant for business in certain sectors in terms of identifying developing markets and developing strategies to deal with this.